Hello everyone, welcome back to this fine map called Feldy. We are almost through with our potato harvest here on our third field. It's been several hours. I decided to do it all off cam so I wouldn't bore anybody too much. Of course, the only time I'm boring you is when I have an episode. But we've made some headway and we're almost through, and you'll notice it's kind of a peculiar shape in here. If I get down here, you can kind of see what it's putting on the field, kind of in its wake. And the reason it's peculiarly shaped is because I've been using autopilot, and you may recall in the last episode I couldn't really get it to work, and I finally figured out how to do it. And you know, it's just one of those ticklish things that as you're doing modding and trying to figure something out, you just keep trying something until it works. And come to find out, you know, there is on the body of the Grimme harvester here where the autopilot is installed. You can see it has, I think so, yeah, autopilot activation. Where it's installed, there is a trigger that is in front of the harvester, and you know, let's say it was here previously. Now it's been moved to here, basically right at the edge where these little yellow arrows appear. You know, that we just manipulated a little bit ago. And I think if it was too far back, it interfered or was confused with what to do with this, you know, the header essentially, or the front part of the harvester. So by sticking it out just a little bit further, sticking your neck out as it would be, it works. And now, I mean, it'll go either way. I've chosen to go counterclockwise so that we can offload the crop kind of where we haven't harvested yet. I figured that would look a little better. The one thing I wasn't able to fix, or haven't really tried to, is just standard harvest mode, if you will, you know, the back and forth. And that, it was kind of goobering it on the end. It was probably a function of kind of how it turns. And that I don't think I'm going to bother with. I was just pleased, you know, we could fix it in here. So let me finish setting up keypad 2 to get on potatoes. Oh, this particular unit even has carrots. That'd be something new to put on to Feldy. Not sure why we would do it. We'll just stick with potatoes. The active side is left. We'll hit keypad 6 to turn that to right. And I believe that is all we need to do. I'll hit enter. We'll get her going. And as you'll see here, it should behave itself. And you know, even though they don't harvest it this way in real life, for me, it was convenient to have it, you know, the hired help be able to basically harvest the whole field. And I have a trailer sitting somewhere over there, it is, where I would offload the product, you know, from the harvester here. It's probably going to be able to fit all the rest of it in it. There's just a little slice of field here left. So we really truly are at the tail end here of what we'll be harvesting. And so it's painstakingly made its way kind of around and around the field. And you can see the edges. It's kind of interesting to see kind of where it cut corners and rounded things off and so forth. So I may have to help finish it up here as we get towards the end. Now, there's another change I also made on this harvester. You may recall in the last episode that I had difficulty offloading the product. you know, you should be able to drive up alongside here, right under, you know, the pipe, if you will. It isn't really a pipe in this case, but that's kind of how the game sees it. Right up underneath here, you should be able to drive under there and offload the potatoes. And I was noticing it would offload some, but it wasn't doing all of it. And this is just more modding exercise to try to drum out problems, you know, in a mod. Here, I think I'm just gonna take over manually. We'll take it off of autopilot. But there is in the underlying model, there is a big old trigger that's kind of right in here, about that shape. And when you drive alongside it with a tractor or in a trailer, it goes into the trigger and it tells the machine, hey, there's somebody coming, you need to start offloading product. Well, it was an indexing problem, and I've had any number of those problems in this particular save, and it was just on the wrong index. It wasn't seeing that particular trigger. So once I had it put to the proper trigger, then of course it would see the trailer and it would start offloading. Now, why it would offload a little bit, but not all, you know, is something that still kind of baffles me. But all I know is it's working now, so I can unload it on the go if I wish, or I think I had the setting, you know, just to kind of be there. Actually, I'm done here. I'll just kind of head it over this way. I'll just pause here. I had it standing still for the unload, which is maybe what they would do in real life. I really don't know what they do with potatoes, actually. Maybe they do unload those on the go. And see here, it probably isn't going to unload anything. I gotta go back into it, and I gotta hit the B key, which activates the pipe, and once it's all the way out, see, it's as if there's a phantom combine pipe here somewhere, and it's swinging it out, and that's kind of how the game sees it. It sees this whole unit as a combine. I think that functionality was fixed, you know, once you get into Farm Sim 13 and higher. You know, they changed kind of how that worked, so, but it kind of had to be jerry-rigged back in Farm Sim 11. Alright, now that we are done, let's fold this puppy up. Kind of cool to watch it do its thing. And we'll get ready to put it away. There we go. Alright. I think we'll take it over here. I can't imagine we'd need to store it anywhere else. So, but yeah, I spent several hours harvesting just these 3 fields, and you know, I look at the time and it's 3:30 in the afternoon. A sizable portion of the day is basically gone. So, oh shoot, I got something else in there. Well, maybe I'll take it over here, and this one probably has space. Maybe. There we go, our fancy new harvester. And you can see the money that we have. You know, we basically have paid for the harvester unit. And I'll just hop now over to the trailer. Got just a little dab more. And kind of by way of remembrance, we've been trying to do this special mission. We have our dosh plant. We already have potatoes in there, 10,000 of them. And we need eggs and we need hogs. I think the idea is to create a meal, and why the meal is at the church, I don't know, but ham and eggs and chips. That's kind of what the instructions say, so that's kind of what we are assembling for. I really need to look up dosh. I don't know anybody if they're watching this, is that a Scottish expression or word? I'm not familiar with the term. So maybe dosh means breakfast or something, and I don't know. I'm just wondering out loud. Anyway, so we already have potatoes up there, so the last bit here, there's really nothing else we can do with potatoes, so we'll just sell them here at the brewery. We've already come over here with many, many loads already, and have run over countless pedestrians. You know, you see that one right there, he's gonna walk right through there. Oh, I would just crush him. He walked right through our hitch. That would be something if those someone made a mod where the pedestrians pass away when they encounter machinery. Thank you, sirs. Thank you, sirs. Thank you so much for waiting. Try to make our way around here. Now, next, kind of on the harvesting agenda, now that we have the 3 fields done here of potatoes, we're through all that, we have a lot of corn. And some can maybe go for silage, but some is probably going to be needed as corn. Although I do seem to recall we have, see, this is how we know we're getting close to being done with a particular map. You see how much biofuel we have, 155,538 liters. I mean, we are just stacked, you know, with material. So we have plenty. We got lots of money in the bank. So we're just gonna, well, maybe do a little corn here. I think I have corn up in storage anyhow. Let me just cycle through. Corn. Yeah, I've got a couple trailer loads up there. So let me just get this turned around, and I'll just kind of park it here in the, actually, you know what? I'm going to park it here in the grass, and we're going to see something else here in a moment. Let me see, where did I put the cultivator? That is back over here. Right. There she is. I'm just gonna back up here, grab this. Yeah, typically when we've been harvesting, kind of my approach, so it doesn't seem like such a burden later, is to start cultivating all the fields kind of behind the combines, so we have all of those taken out. And kind of ready for the fall planting. But here now, I want to try something different, and I want to show something I discovered that was in the map, and I just wasn't aware of it until fairly recently. And it must be, I'm not sure if it's something Farmer Yip was contemplating, you know, developing further and then just never had time, or just what the deal was. But let me pause it here, and I want to show you something in the map i3D file. Back in a moment. Alright, we are in the map i3D file, map01.i3d, opened in a text editor for Feldy, and I'm cleared down here kind of in the foliage or the scene section, and I'm in the foliage layers. Well, I just happened to be looking at these the other day, and come to find out there was these down here: manure, windrow, liquid manure, windrow, and it's like, what in the world are these? So I opened the map editor, and sure enough, I mean, I was able to put down a different kind of windrow. Now, most of us were familiar with a windrow in here by now. You know, the windrow is kind of what falls behind the combine, you know, is straw or grass, or some of these others that we had, red clover windrow. I'm not sure what sugar bee windrow is, but there was one in here. Barley would have one, rape had one called OSR, you may remember. Peas even had one. But these here, typically in the game, when you fertilize a crop, you see that it turns kind of the ground a little bit darker, right? And it'll do this whether you put on granular fertilizer, whether you put on liquid fertilizer, or whether you use, what your animals produce and you throw down some manure or liquid manure. We all know this from having played the game, and back then they didn't develop the graphics to make a distinction between all those. So when you throw out the solid manure, the impact to the ground looks identical to when you would throw out granular fertilizer. That's just kind of how it works. It just darkens it. Well, some clever modder back in the Farm Sim 11 era came up with a way to show different textures, particularly for manure and liquid manure. And come to find out in the bowels of the game, if you put something in here with an underscore windrow, the game searches for this and knows that it has a windrow to look for. And I know I'm not saying it quite right, but I know what I saw, in terms of searching for the underscore windrow. Now, you do need to kind of call it a fruit, I think, maybe to use it, or to use some of the functionality with the other functions, to treat it somewhat similar to the straw windrow or what have you. But this, putting the underscore windrow, says that, hey, manure has a texture. And by the way, so does liquid manure. And so Farmer Yip had already put these into his map. I could pull it open in the editor. I won't bother doing that on. My computer doesn't have that much punch, and it would upset it because I got the game running, in the background too. But suffice it to say, it's like I was able to put down other textures. So it's like, well, how come in game, because I did a bunch of work, getting rid of all my manure and liquid manure and the digestate, down there at the BGA and so forth. And I didn't see any special texture. So something wasn't quite activating it yet. So I did some searching, and I think I found it over a mod hoster that it needed something else. In order to use it, you kind of need a script to tell the game to tell all your sprayers, and because the manure spreader and the liquid manure spreader, those are a type of sprayer. So here I found a script made by Cooper, I guess his name is, and he started off by registering a manure 2, basically so this would work on any map. And so he kind of just created a new fill type and set it up, registering it or whatever. Well, we already have it registered in Yip's map. He registered all these additional fruits. There you see red clover and peas and so forth. Well, he has manure and liquid manure in here. And in here, you notice, let's see here, has straw. I wonder if I put true on that. I may have changed it, maybe for manure, but I didn't do that for liquid manure, which is kind of curious because that also has a windrow. Anyway, maybe this doesn't make as big a deal as I think it does as to how it's registered. It's more maybe over on the script. Now, the technique that the fella used for the script is... to conclude this up here, I commented this out. I didn't want manure 2 because we already have manure and liquid manure in here. So down here in the script, wherever you see like fill type manure, he had fill type manure 2, as I recall, to mirror kind of what he registered up here. But anyway, the technique that he used is he's calling pieces. He kind of these are called a hook, I believe. He's hooking the game's code. So first, for the sprayer, actually this one will be first. For sprayer load, when it's loading the sprayer, loading the XML file, he says, all right, we're going to take a backup of the existing sprayer load code. So we have that here, and so then down here we come to sprayer load. He's defining a new function, so he says, first thing I want you to do is run everything that we just had in our backup. So there's a whole bunch of items. It's going to run those things. Then he adds this little snippet here that he wants to put in there. If the fill types of the particular sprayer is able to handle manure, or if it's able to handle liquid manure, if you have a sprayer where one of those is true, then activate the script, manure VE2 active. That's all it's doing. So if you have this, then we're going to apply this script. And so it's just a simple Boolean variable that he has. So next he has update tick backup for the sprayer. And he's going to do the same technique here. He's going to redefine the function, take the backup, do everything that's in the regular code. That's kind of what the single line is. And then do these other things. Now here he adds a bit more complexity. If it's turned on, if the sprayer is turned on, that is, if you have stuff in the tank, that is if the fill level's greater than 0, if the script is active, and if the current fill type happens to be manure, then we want you to do this. And what the rest of this is involved in is it's going to put down the special texture that is built into the map for manure. So it's grabbing the cutting areas. This defines the area that it is spreading manure. So it's a parallelogram. Actually, there can be more than one cutting area or work areas. It was later called in later versions. Then it's counting up, hey, how much manure have you put on here? And it's going to cap it at a maximum here. But then it comes down here and says, hey, let's update the fruit windrow area, put down the windrow for manure, and use this particular area. This would be the working area. Value that's an amount that it calculates it's allowed to have. And then this, it depends on how this is defined. I believe true is maybe a force, and false is maybe delete fruit underneath. Let me just see here real quick. Update meadow area. No, not that. What one was it? It was update fruit windrow area. My bad, I had the wrong one. Update fruit windrow area. Yeah, value force delete fruit. So it's going to put down this much windrow. Force means it's definitely going to put it there. It's going to ignore any mask that it has, meaning only put it at a certain area. And delete fruit, if you recall, that was false. So it isn't going to delete what's underneath it. And I mean, that's what you would expect. If you were throwing manure out, it isn't, unless you got a whole gob of it, it isn't going to just kill whatever's underneath it. So that's kind of what it's doing up here. If it's turned on, if it has material, and if the material's manure, then put down the manure texture. And all of that is defined, in the map i3d file. If you were to look at the map and follow, like here's the material, and you go look at material 231, it's going to tell you the files that are used for the shader, for the manure windrow, for the texture, and some of those other details. And then there's a bunch of other things. It says how spread out it'll be, how thick it'll be kind of on the field. It has all those details. So once all that's in the map, the script is calling it over here, and then it has an else if on the same function. Same details, if none of this is true up here, it's going to come to this one and see if it's true. And this one here is for liquid manure. And it's going to go through the same exercise that it did up here, and now it's going to put down liquid manure. So, yeah, and if neither of these are true, well, then it'll just pass by and nothing will happen. So in other words, if you have a conventional sprayer, and of course it has chemical in it, it doesn't have manure or liquid manure, it's going to come here, it'll do all of this, but it will bypass all of this because none of it's true. Now, let me go in game and just show a little bit as to what this looks like. Let me see here. Is it 1? No, not the app one. Maybe it's 3. Here we go. All right. I have our slurry, whatever you call this, slurry spreader. Let me get this out here. And the field here obviously has just been harvested. So I think when a person would use this, when the farmer would use it, is probably post-harvest, before you'd have another crop, so you could cultivate it into the ground. So I want to just go here, all of the texture that we have on the field currently still shows the fertilized texture, but this is going to put something over the top of it. It's pretty cool. Here we go. Now, I have no idea if this is how it would look in real life. And the material that we are putting in here came from the BGA. So earlier I called it digestate, and I'm not sure if that's the proper term. It appears that in FarmSim 11, whatever was coming out of the BGA was the same material, if you will, as liquid manure. And you'll notice I'm not going clear to the edge of the field, and part of the reason for that is it will put it over the top of anything. It doesn't just confine it to the field, so it's going to put it in the grass, it's going to make a mess all over the road, and the only way to get rid of it, I'm going to have to show you in a little bit here. So I'm going to be careful kind of where I put it, and maybe this is a little too thick. I've never used or seen one of these machines used on the farm. If you picked up liquid manure or digestate, is this what it would look like coming out? And something tells me that this particular machine, that this is not, what would happen to it. I don't know if it injects it into the ground or just how all those little pipes work. But I have a feeling that it wouldn't be putting, this kind of a texture, or it wouldn't look like this on the ground. So, but in game here, I gotta say, this is kind of a cool effect. To put it in here, you can definitely see kind of where you're going. Now, the problem is, if this was trying to fertilize the ground, it's going to leave this ugly looking material all over the ground. So no longer would you use this thing for traditional fertilization. It's just kind of the way things worked in FarmSim 11. Oh, look at that. I guess I'll basically make a round and then I'm gonna be done. Just barely made it. Yeah, and it doesn't, you'll notice you can't see where we've been. I don't have distance textures plugged in. But, if you were having this for the fertilization value, you wouldn't want that because this isn't going to disappear. You could, if this was unfertilized ground, rest assured everything underneath all that muck has indeed been fertilized, but the trouble is nothing's going to get rid of the muck. You look at this, it definitely is another kind of windrow. It's sitting kind of on top of it all here. And actually, you know what? It kind of disappears. You can't even hardly see it very far away. It must have a low clip distance. So this is something you would want to do and then cultivate it into the soil. Now, that kind of raises the next problem, because when I first downloaded the mod, one of the problems was you couldn't cultivate it. I mean, once it was put on the ground, it stayed put, and there was no getting rid of it yet. And there's the bell. And I'll show you here. This is another fix I had to make, and it's been a little while since I've tested this, so hopefully it doesn't make a liar out of me. But we should be able to cultivate this and work it into the soil, which is exactly what we are doing. So let me pause a moment and I'll just show you the code here real quick before closing. Alright, so here's some additional code that I added. I did the same tactic up here. I added a variable called destroy, and I said update utils destroy common area. This is an existing function, and the reason I chose that function is, let me see, I'm going the wrong way. When you cultivate or when you plow, which is in this one, it uses a function called update destroy common area in both instances, and that is defined down here, update destroy common area, and it says everything it's doing. Now this stuff here is primarily, it's only going to deal with, if we go back to the map i3D file, it's only going to deal with these foliage sublayers. Anything that's kind of in the crop or foliage database, if you will, it doesn't touch the other foliage multi-layers until we tell it to. You know, it's designed in the game to deal with these, and all the code here is set up for that. So what I did is I hooked update destroy common area, and I added my own code in down here. So this here is going to do everything it's supposed to do already, and then I updated the windrow area with the same function that they had up here, where it's adding a value. Now I said make the value 0. Take it down to 0, which in essence makes it disappear. So the modder that made this didn't fully finish it, although I think I saw that there was an update to it later. But kind of like I mentioned before, it's getting harder and harder to find Farm Sim 11 mods. So I couldn't find the update. All I know is now it works just fine. So we're able to cultivate out this material here. And of course, any fertilization that's done by it, we're going to have to redo. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But that's okay. It provides one more thing that we can do in the fields. And, you know, it adds some realism, really, because, you know, I think this here is material that in real life we would cultivate into the soil anyways. So the bell's already rung, so I will let you go for this particular episode, and we will see you in the next one. Thank you for coming by. Bye-bye.